I regret clapping, staying seated. I regret not having the courage to stand up and give her the standing ovation and the respect she deserves. But I did finally muster the courage to go and speak with her. They say you should never meet your heroes, but I had the honor and the rare opportunity of meeting the author of today's autobiography. I met Amanda. So this is a book review of Baked in Pain, an autobiography, and at the end I'll tell you guys all the story of how I came across this book in the first place, because it's really difficult to find, and how the author inspired me not only to read it, but this woman is something else. Hello there! So today we're doing my first autobiography, Baked in Pain. So first off, the kind of feel of this book and the voice. It's written quite academically. What I mean by that is that it's straightforward, it's not too emotional, and there are a lot of references to other text, references to psychological or different texts on behavior and trauma and love and all of these things, as it is relevant in the novel, where Amanda will just list a lot of these things with references from the original text to kind of give her own story some meat and some real world statistics behind it, because this is obviously one woman, one story, but there's a whole wide world of girls going through the exact same thing. Then the voice. It's kind of cold. You expect it to be very dramatic, melodramatic, tears and making you sob and very emotional, but she doesn't go into detail. The voice is cold and strong. This is what happened. I was abused. It doesn't fetishize that abuse by going into the nitty-gritty details and making it a big story. It's cold. It's to the point. This is what happened, and this is what it meant. So it kind of feels like you're getting the cold, hard truth. No frills, no fusses, just truth. Then, would I recommend this book? It's 4 out of 5 stars from me. On the one hand, very inspirational. This is the true life story of a woman I had the honor to meet. And it's something that I think, especially girls who have anything in common with her, would really value reading. It's about rising above circumstances. It's about being a black woman in South Africa. It's about being an orphan, being homeless, being without hope, and yet still motivated to make something of yourself. So this is really a rising above the odds type of story, and I love it. 4 stars because of the voice. I think the story holds you because of the story, where the prose and the quality of the text itself is not all the way there. Then here plot and character really mix a lot, so there wouldn't be a point in splitting it. It's an autobiography. The character is the writer, is the person going through the story, is the plot. That's the whole point. This is Amanda's life story. So Amanda is a young girl with a terrible childhood. She is abandoned, abused, every type of abuse you can think of. And as I said, it doesn't go into a lot of detail with it. It just is. And on top of that, she's also bullied almost wherever she goes. At school, at home, brothers and sisters. Life is tough. She kind of decides, I think the first time she decides that she has to make something of herself, she's like 4 or 5 years old. And she decides that God created me, and he created me for a reason. That means I need to survive this. Otherwise, I'm missing my purpose. There has to be a purpose for me. That means I will survive. And that kind of motivates her and pushes her through the rest of her story. It's this deep intrinsic idea that there has to be a reason for her existence. The reason for her existence is fully dependent on her belief in God, and her belief in God is unwavering. Thus, her motivation to be something more is also completely unwavering, and it drives her through every part of her life. At first, Amanda has one thing to hold on to. She has her faith in God, and she has her community in the church. It's not a very good community, but she goes there and she sings in the choir because she has a good voice. And then the church leader, horrible lady, finds out that she wears shorts at home and she doesn't take it well. And Amanda is kicked out of the church, and it's the only place she's known. So we go from bad to worse, and then she starts to pick herself up. So I want to use an analogy to sort of explain the trajectory of Amanda's life without going into detail and spoiling the entire book. So there once was a donkey that fell into a hole, and it was stuck there. And the farmer decided there was just no way to get the donkey out, so he would just bury it alive. He would just let it die quickly, save it some suffering, and then move on. And there's one scene or one event in Amanda's life that depicts this perfectly: her choice to keep living. Her uncle wants to beat her to death. He is very angry at something she did. She does not know to this day what she did to deserve this anger, but he decides she's going to die today. And she runs away and she hides behind the stove. It's hot and she's burning and she's baking behind there, but she won't come out. She won't come out to be beaten to death. And that's where the title of the book comes from. That's where Baked in Pain comes from. It's that choice to keep on living, to fight through the most terrible circumstances, to survive and to thrive. And that's the same thing the donkey does in the analogy. The farmer starts throwing dirt on the donkey, just like life keeps piling on more hardships onto Amanda, and the donkey shakes it off and he steps on top. And more dirt comes and he shakes it off and he steps on top. And finally, the donkey steps out of the hole. His back is bleeding from all the rocks and the dirt thrown on him, but he's out. And then, once Amanda, our donkey, steps outside, she does more than simply walk away. She runs. And that's not to say that she just brushes off the wounds. Her back bleeds for many years. She cries even once she has her husband and her family. She still relives the trauma. She still is scared of certain things. But she not only walks away, she runs. And Amanda has made a massive success of herself. She's an entrepreneur, owner of a few businesses now. She's had a very successful career. She has a very loving family who are the pride and joy of her entire life. All she wanted to be was a mother, to be a better mother than her mother was before her. And that's sort of what she went for. And if your measurement of success is happy family, then she achieved that. And that's success. So I think this story just, it goes on sort of an unpredictable journey. Because if you had told me about a little girl who was stuck being black in apartheid South Africa, being abused, iffy education at the beginning, obviously, because apartheid South Africa, no parents, abused in every single way possible, how am I supposed to believe that she ends up where she ends up? And that's what makes this story amazing, because it's almost unrealistic. And yet, I met her. I shook hands with Amanda from the story. And that's why I had to read the book. So what happened was I was at a business summit about, everybody was talking about like how to do business, how to make a success of your life. And Amanda was one of the speakers there. And she told us about how she used the pain of her past to fuel the success of her future. And not to say that that pain was good in any way, but how she used a strict defiance to not be like her mother, to not be like the people in her life, to make her life something of a success. I'm ashamed to say it, but that day after her speech, I wanted to. I really wanted to stand up and give her the respect, the standing ovation she deserved, to show her how much her story had meant to me, that brief bit that she told us on stage. But I didn't. I stayed seated. I stayed seated among everybody else who stayed seated. And now, knowing fully everything she's gone through, I feel even more ashamed that I didn't have the courage to stand up. She would have. But I did have the courage to go to her afterwards, and I told her, I just want to shake your hand. That meant the world to me, and I know what I want for Christmas. And she was so warm, so lovely. She gave me a hug, and it's just, it was so amazing to try and imagine, once again, unthinkable, to try and imagine how such a happy, loving, warm soul could have been the same one to endure just that much hell. And I told her that I know what I want for Christmas now, and she offered to give me one of her books, but unfortunately she didn't have any more in the car with her. And it was a struggle to find, but my parents got me Baked in Pain for Christmas, and it really meant the world to me. So thank you, Amanda, for being willing to share your story. As for the rest of you, stay safe, wash your hands, and I hope to see you all next week. Bye bye.